Here we go. This session is about your artist portfolio, and that's separate from your exhibition listing in the festival guide. The festival guide listing is about you and the address at which you're exhibiting, or your group and the address at which you're exhibiting. So really, it's about the address and the timings of your exhibition. The portfolio is a giant online space for you to populate with your art as much as you would like, with as many examples of your work and further information in different formats as you would like to. If you're a solo artist, then you will have both in your user account, an exhibition entry or listing, which is the venue bit, and an artist portfolio. So if you can just get those distinct in your head, that's really helpful. Artists exhibiting alone sometimes ask why these things are distinct. Um, and it's because more than half of our visitors, more than half of our exhibitors, maybe two-thirds, show in pairs or in groups. Um, so they don't have their own individual exhibition listings. So they really need to concentrate on the portfolio as a place to showcase their own work. And some of our artists also and makers will also be exhibiting at two venues, so then the artist portfolio is linked to both. Now, that artist portfolio is about you, whatever the other people in your group are choosing to do. It's completely independent of the exhibition organisation itself, and you could be the only person in that group to complete your portfolio, though it is best if more than one person does, because if somebody goes online to have a look about coming to Artists of Adderbury or St Mary's in Kidlington, then they are going to see suggestions about what several artists will be presenting, and that's much more enticing than just seeing one artist's work when actually there's 20 artists in that group. Um, and also, if you are part of a large group with a shared image, unless you've already sent me something, for example, for the online show, or I've already seen your work on Instagram, then I won't know anything about you apart from your name in the index. And neither will Joe, and neither will anybody else looking through that guide. So that's why we really recommend that you fill out the portfolio the best way that you can. It's just a brilliant place to showcase your work to potential visitors. And it's also, if you want it to be, like a mini website for you. If you don't have one, if you don't have a social media presence, because we keep the name of your portfolio the same from year to year. So the portfolio changes. We do that deliberately. Otherwise, we know from bitter experience that everybody just rolls it over and they've got work in their portfolio from 1500 years ago. So we change, so it's a new database each year. It's a blank sheet each year. But the URL stays the same. So you can use it, provided you don't change your name, you can use it year in, year out. You can put it on a business card if you like. Um, so yeah, that's the kind of why we have a portfolio that's separate and how you can start to use it. So we generally use the phrase artist portfolio because we are an artists festival. We're a festival of artists, and most of the Artweeks members are individuals. We do, though, have some organisations and like charities or schools or museums or galleries too, the sort of the commercial galleries that are members too. So when I say artist portfolio, really I'm talking about members portfolio. And if you are here, and at least one of you is representing a group of artists, like as in a sort of non-selling group, um, then you will have a portfolio as an organisation to do with exactly the same, but just you're thinking about the organisation rather than an individual showcasing their work. So hopefully you all received a big January Art Weeks newsletter. If any of you didn't, in fact, you should have had two by now, then do get in touch because it means that your system is blocking the newsletters for some reason and we'll send them in a different way. But you should have all had a January newsletter with a link to an artist handbook and also a link to creating your artist portfolio. Now, that includes quite detailed instructions for people who aren't that confident with technology. Um, Oh, well, the other thing is if you haven't received a newsletter, Or in the future, you think, oh, it's a long time since I saw an Art Weeks newsletter. I wonder if I'm not getting them. They will all go into the members section, the for artists section. There's a members resources page on the website. So you should always be able to find everything there as a kind of starting point. Um, but if you're comfortable with websites and Microsoft Office and so on, you're probably not going to need help creating your portfolio. Because it's reasonably intuitive. It's now a new website. It's completely up to date. But if you do, you can always ask for help. But if you are less computer minded, just as a reminder, log back into your user account on the Artweeks website, your dashboard, sign in, and on that dashboard, you'll find an Add Portfolio button, and that's where to start. So, what is this artist portfolio that we're creating? It's your own online showcase. It's a mini website if you want with your URL. And there are lots of things you can include. It's up to you how much you complete. Though I do a plea, please add your contact details so that if anybody wants to buy something from you that they saw online or that they saw when they visited and have been thinking about and are now wanting to get back in touch, then they know how to reach you. Otherwise, they email us, which is, that's okay. We can do that. But it's better to sort of kind of cut out the middleman. So first, your contact details. There's space for your own website, Instagram, Facebook, email, phone number. There's also a free text box. So if you've got more than one website or you want to refer people to Etsy or anything you like, really, there's or some further text too. Then there's a little bit of space there about how to contact you. Um, and then the next thing is adding images of your work. Now, do make a note that we're asking for a minimum of 6 images before that portfolio goes live on the website. So the website will be updated for 2026 in the next few days, week, hopefully definitely within 10 weeks. It's running very slightly late this year because there's a lot of changes behind the scenes. Um, if you haven't entered 6 images, even if you've entered 5, you won't appear. That seems cruel and harsh, but the reason we do that is that when we've had visitor feedback, they feel a bit discouraged, a bit shortchanged if they click through to someone who they want to see more of their work, or they've seen image 1, so they click through to see more, and there's only one more picture. So we've decided that 6 seem to be enough. That doesn't shortchange anyone, but isn't too onerous for you guys. Um, do do try and make sure obviously that they're nice and tidy, because especially if they click through and then they're all upside down or scruffy or they've been taken in the dark or they might be something for eBay, that's not so great either. So do remember, we're trying to keep our online visitors entertained. So you can use this portfolio space to give either a good taster of what you do, or you can use it to create a full virtual exhibition or a through the keyhole look into your studio and processes. Again, no need to put your venue details in this at all. Your venue will automatically appear on that portfolio. Your venue, click through to your venue details. So please don't put venue details in, because that will make it outdated as soon as we get past May. If you leave it just about you and your work, then it's relevant. It doesn't look out of date right until it runs out of time this time next year. So your portfolio is a summary of you and the work you make and what you'll have on show. In the portfolio, there are also text boxes. The exhibition description doesn't mean your venue, it means describe the selection of art and craft in your exhibition. That is the equivalent of a book blurb about the contents of your show or display, ideally anyway. So you might have, your work is all watercolours, it's all beach inspired, it's all this, that, and the other, but your exhibition itself this year is about the beaches of Pembrokeshire. So that's kind of the difference. There's you and what you do as a general giant kind of artist practice, and then there's what are you actually going to be having on in this year's show, and that could be you're focusing on women in your portraiture, or you've got a new glaze, it's copper glaze for your for the pots this year, or you've been inspired by the colours of Morocco in your glass art this year. So it's about what's in this year's exhibition. So I think my next point, though, I've just said about, think about a book blurb, but don't think of your portfolio just as a marketing tool. Consider it as an end point as well. Uh, so I've just had a pop-up here about 6 o'clock today for the deadline for the portfolio. There is no deadline for the portfolio. There's no deadline at all. I recommend that you do it around this time of year if you can. Um, because I'm starting to look from next week really at what's in portfolios because I have to start writing copy for various places, starting with Round and About, which anybody who's in South Oxfordshire will know Round and About, I'm sure, because it will go through your door. That's where I start because they want it earliest. And the other one I start is I will be sending out a press release to the Cotswold Life in about the next week. So anybody who's in North Oxfordshire, and that's you, Judith, and your recipes. Anybody who's, oh yes, Louise as well. Anybody who's got a story that they think might be good for Cotswold Life, and that they are quite particular about what they choose. It can be quite a hard one. Then I will be looking at those sort of immediately. So that's why I say to do it at this time of year if you can. That said, half of not you because you're all keen on the ball and you're here, but half of the artists will be doing it on the 30th of April. That's fine too. It just means that they've missed some opportunities for extra promotion, possibly. But the people visiting the festival will still look. So that's on the deadline. So I was saying, think
Can I
about it
just,
as
I'm still a bit confused.
yes.
So where and when did the six or nothing happen?
Right, the six or nothing is always that's always. If you put I see what you mean. I see why I've confused you. The website goes live with an A to Z of artists for 2026
Mhm.
in the next week or 10 days.
Right.
As soon as you've entered 6 images into your portfolio, you will pop up onto the website.
Oh, right.
Um, but that's the same case. If you don't put 6 images in until the 31st of October, your that's when your profile will pop up. And actually there are a few people who do that because they have they have an exhibition in the summer which is part of a large group. They don't get round to it, but then in October they do something for Christmas. So you can, I mean you don't have to do it
Right.
before May, but obviously we'd recommend that you do. So
Thank
you
you
can
very much.
update your portfolio at any time from now until well, till Christmas time, till next January, though there wouldn't be much point doing it next January. Um, so think about your portfolio as an end point. It's not a flyer and it's not, please, a CV. CVs are actually quite dull. So the best ones, the best portfolios are a mini online exhibition or open studio. Or think about it as a mini open studio or online exhibition. And I did post. I've created an example, which is my name on the website. I think I put links to it. Certainly, there's links to it in the creating artist portfolio document, which if any of you don't have and can't find, email in for it. And I may have put it in the January newsletter too, and in the handbook. Um, Last year's my current one has got a Vietnam theme, and that is last year's one. Because that's when I went on holiday the previous year to Vietnam. This year's will pop up once the website changes. It will now be my 2026 portfolio, and it will be Sicily. But basically, what I've done in it is I've sort of done a template where in each box I say, in this box, you could write this. And the captions to the images say things like, don't forget to put prices in your captions, and you only have X number of characters or they will be truncated. But so things like that. So I've done a sort of example, and you will find that under L in the A to Z of artists online, or there are links in the creating a portfolio. So you're thinking about this as a little end point or a big end point. And people, yes, they will have a look at your portfolio to decide whether to make the trip to see you and your venue for real. Brilliant. They may, on the strength of your portfolio, decide that they've not got time to drive to Henley and back in that Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon after going for Sunday lunch with grandma or whatever. But they'll start following on social media or something on the strength of your portfolio. So it's actually really good for people who'd like to visit you and aren't able to. It's a chance for you to engage with them there, totally independently of your physical show. And if you get that right, it could be just the start of a relationship between you and them and your work into the future. If not for their May itinerary, but yeah, something they might buy something right now from your Etsy shop. Now, it's hard to say how many people will visit that portfolio, independent of you going to your venue, because there are 1,000 artists. So we probably have, I don't know, not everybody fills in a portfolio, maybe 500, 600 portfolios. Some of them will get, um, you know, I, it's hard to say, but some people will get a few dozen visitors. Other people will get hundreds. And somebody last year, and I think it's probably because her name must have been the same as somebody else's name, got something ridiculous like 71,000 visitors from the States. Apparently, according to my Google Analytics super savvy son, who looked at the analytics. So yeah, I mean, bonkers, but I'd like to say it was because she was just such a startling, amazing artist. And of course, she's a very good artist, but I'm not sure that 71,000 in 1 month from America.
Can I
Anyway, there you
just
go.
can I just say I once got a commission from somebody who just happened across my portfolio, and then they emailed me and commissioned me to paint a painting similar to one that was on my portfolio that I had sold, and so it is really worth doing. It's a fantastic thing for artists like me who don't have a website or something like that, and it pops up if when I'm just very grateful to you
Oh, thank you for
for
that. That's
giving us
really
this
interesting feedback.
opportunity. So
Because I do know it happens, but to
yeah,
hear it happening in this little group for it to have
yeah.
happened is
No,
brilliant.
I was absolutely shocked. So it was really good.
Because likewise with the online show, people do buy things from the online show, and people do. So if you, I think we talked about that yesterday, but do send in an email, send an email in an image for that with title, price, and size. But people do sell things from that, or again, and that's a way into people's portfolios. So yeah, the one of the reasons as well why it's good to fill in your portfolio is even if you have a good website because you're just probably just you and it won't be a massive website and it won't get huge traffic because you're a single artist, unless you're this particular artist last year and with the American name, Doppelganger. Um, Art Week's website is massive. It has links into it from I don't know, all of you, from a million social media posts, from Experience Oxfordshire, from the magazines. It's linked to it in so many ways that search engine optimization kind of sees it as a really big, valuable, good, well-liked website. So even if you've got your own website, www.neilbutterfieldart.com, he used to always say, I've got this lovely website, but if you type my name in, Artweek's website or his profile on the Artweek's website would come up first. So that's so it's good for search engine kind of reasons too. So let's get back to what you're actually going to put in this portfolio. So it could range from 6 images and a little description of you, absolutely fine, to all singing, all dancing, maybe not the dancing, um, virtual exhibition with an exhibition catalogue and video footage. And some of that is just going to depend on your time and your energy and your inclination. And also whether you're planning on using it as a sort of personal website for the whole year. So it'll last till about the end of January 2027. You can update it and amend it whenever you like. So if you sell a piece, put something different in if you like, or just put sold on the website, or don't, but you can, or just keep your new work on it, whatever you like. So it's just an easy to update space um, for an online exhibition. But if you wanted to do something else somewhere else in cyberspace, so if you, I don't know, a 3D walkthrough gallery, there is technology quite easily available to do those kind of walkthrough galleries. So I have to say, I've never really yet found one that I find easy to walk through online. But I always seem to be looking at my virtual feet. But they do exist, those technology. If you want to do something like that, then do that in any other space online and link through to it from your portfolio. There's all those text boxes. It's easy to do. That's not a reason, though, to leave your portfolio sparse, because if you've got this wonderful world-leading immersive experience of singing, dancing, art on your own website, you're not going to get much traffic if all you include in your portfolio is click here to see my website and then a URL, because a URL just isn't, it's not enticing. So then if you've got that, think of your portfolio like a garden gate. And however wonderful you might have a brilliant walled garden with kitchen garden of herbs and lawns running down to a river with kingfishers fluttering across the top. But if the garden gate itself is just this kind of dusty grey hanging off its hinges, how many people are going to go through it to have a look at what you've got on the other side? So think about, you want your portal or your expert to have a bit of wow factor to take them through to wherever you're signposting someone. I'm talking about this possibility of a 3D super exhibition. Actually, that's only a couple of people ever really do that, but some people do use it to take to their own website. Or also, if you wanted to we can only put 12 images per person on our website. If you wanted to put 100 up, one of the ways sometimes people do it is they would put it on a Facebook album, for example, as long as you've made sure that the publicity is, that anybody can access it. You could do something like that and then put that link through. But then remember, don't just put the link, because the number of people who are going to just click on a bare link, it drops every time there's a link. So give people some really enticing examples of what they're going to see beyond that link, or just for their own sake, or what they're going to see at the venue. So I will talk about the timings again in a minute. But yes, in a nutshell, you can create your portfolio anytime now, the 30th of April, November, whenever you like. It's completely up to you. But let's keep it simple. How are you going to present yourself easily in this artist portfolio? And how are you going to showcase your work and explain, just as you would in real life, how and why you're going to make it? So a couple of tips first. Tip number one, please, if you can, we recommend you use a computer rather than a handheld device to do this. You can do it on a tablet, but there's quite a lot of information that you might be putting in and sections to choose to use in the portfolio. I think people tend to find it find it easier on a bigger screen. But the key thing is that phones and tablets don't usually make it easy to see the size of images that you've stored. So you won't be able to see if it's a full res version, which you probably want, megabyte, 2 MB, so people can really see it, or a thumbnail. And if you upload a thumbnail, it's going to appear like this on a website, and that's rubbish. So, you'll then see it when you go into your portfolio to check it, but they'll either be too small to upload or they just won't look great. So that's why we really recommend using a computer if you can. And tip two, in fact, I think this is tip one, tip super one, do save the portfolio when you've made changes. It doesn't auto-save. Now, if you try to move on to a different website, it will say, do you want to save changes? But if you just close your tab, you don't keep those changes. So make a note and autosave. Hi, Judith, is that a hand up?
Why doesn't it prompt you? Because I have fallen foul of that. I've learnt now, but and
If
done
you
it all
move
and lost it all.
We've just changed to a different content management system. So the old one, I guess it just didn't have the facility to do that. Because it's I suppose the truth is you are inputting sort of via a what's the word? You are inputting into our content management system when you're putting stuff in. So it's a bit like you're creating a web page. So it's not auto saving that until you said, yes, I'm ready with my web page. So you see it as a form, but the web page is absorbing the information as a new web page that it won't publish live until you have given it the say so. The new one, I think if you try and change off that page, it will prompt you, do you want to save? But we are telling everyone, and we put it in the handbook, because what we don't want is people to lose it.
Yeah.
I also actually recommend that if you're writing text, I'd always recommend write it in Word first anyway and cut and paste it, because it just tends to be easier to write in Word than than in a box online that then it might be scrolling and you know can't
Mm.
see what you've written. And so
Mm.
but no, it should prompt you if you're changing, if you're
Oh, well,
leaving
that's
the
good
page.
now. Yes,
But
because it didn't do that before.
it won't if you just shut the tab. So
Yeah.
do try and
Uh-huh.
remember. So
Yeah. Thank you.
um and also I would recommend, saving after every bit that you do.
Mm.
So there's all these different elements, the more the merrier, but we've subdivided it into several sections to make it easier to navigate particularly for the people who found that there was a lot of stuff all at once. They got a bit outfaced by it. So first, we've also already mentioned artist contact details, and your images. The second section, and there's a little arrow that you click to open it, a bit like on the tax office or a government website. You click that arrow and it kind of opens out beneath. That's the second section is for your artist and art information in text boxes. And then the final section, which is for the Golden Star students, is the advanced exhibition options. And that's advanced options. That's where you can include links to video that they then embed. So you include YouTube videos or Vimeo videos, but then they're embedded in your page. Or you can upload an exhibition catalogue or a flip book. Again, that you can then flip the pages within your portfolio. So there are lots of different options. So let's assume you can all manage the contact details straightforwardly. And then there's a space to add a picture of yourself. And I know you're probably all going, I don't want to do that. Um, but it's so we do really recommend that you include this kind of artist at work picture. It can be any picture of you, um, but think about it as the virtual equivalent of your welcome at a real event. So this photo kickstarts your portfolio or this mini taster exhibition. So it's really good if it's about you and your work. So what we're trying to avoid is that glum stare of a passport photo. And if you can find a photo that's really you, that's brilliant. That's characterful, maybe. A shot of you painting on the beach or rummaging in the kiln. Or if your art is fabric based, a shot at the sewing machine. Or maybe if you're painting still lifes of veggies or recipes, then actually something, you're at the allotment or you're in the kitchen with a spoon rather than a paintbrush. So something that's relevant to the content of the show, maybe. Or or just something that's a bit fun or got a bit of life to it. You're in a yoga pose or doing something that's important to you and inspires your art. So, I don't know, hang gliding, if you do aerial kind of views of things. So, Art Weeks is about art and craft and the design. Of course it is. But actually, it's also about people. We are an artist festival. We're not just an art festival. So we're like a literary festival, but just much more colourful and pretty. And for visitors, one of the big things that they love about Art Weeks, rather than just going to, a kind of gallery when they're walking past, is getting to meet the makers. So have a think about how a visitor to your portfolio might leave your portfolio feeling that they both saw your work and kind of met you. So after that biographical shot, the next thing to add is your 12 images, and that's probably your 12 best or your 12 most representative or your 12 most recent. That's up to you to choose. Remember, minimum of 6 to go live in the A to Z of artists, and just think carefully about which one you upload first. That first one is, um, I'm going to call it your iconic photo for the year. So if you have a solo listing, you might use the same one, but you might choose to use a different one because people will see both. The reason I'm calling that one your sort of iconic one is that viewers will see that one in other places popping up on the website. So in your in the venue details, the little portfolio, the iconic one of each artist at that venue will pop up. It could be randomized in other places, but it will be cropped square. That one will be auto crop square. So choose one that's as close to square as possible, or that you're happy with it being cropped square. If you choose a very tall, thin portrait photo, for example, then the head could be chopped off, which isn't great. I mean, it's only good if it's Marie Antoinette, and well, Actually, it wasn't all that good for Marie Antoinette, if we're really honest about it. Or if it's a landscape and it's, just check that you're happy with the middle of it being reused elsewhere. Or crop it yourself, put a square one up. So before you start uploading, look at your images with a critical eye and make sure they're as good as you can make them. So crop them, straighten them. Also, little things, if you've not taken photos of your art much before, and it's especially if there's glass, is there light reflecting off the glass? Are you in that picture clutching your phone in the glass? You wouldn't be the first person. And just check that the backdrop is sort of clean and clear. We're really trying to avoid that cluttered eBay look with a crumpled shirt dangling on a wardrobe door. Try and keep it as kind of clean and smart as you can, obviously. And we really also ask no branding or minimal. This is for images, it's not for flyers. If I spot that somebody's iconic image is a flyer that says, do come along, I am, oh, I don't know, I am Beach Photos Anonymous, and it's a logo, then I will probably shuffle that one from the front because we are an artist festival. That's why we get all the support from the local media and the local press, is because we're a community event. We're people, lots of small people doing little things. As soon as we look like we're a bundle of businesses, that feel changes. So branding, minimal, please. Photographers, particularly, sometimes put a copyright thing across their photos. I understand why. It is a real shame for me because I can't then use them for additional publicity. So bear that in mind. If you're doing that and you would be like to be considered for additional publicity, then you can send them to me without those watermarks. Most people don't get too het up about people downloading images or cutting images from websites because actually they're not too high res. There's not very much you can do with them, and I think it's kind of worth being flattered. There's nothing much you can do to stop people taking images because they can always do screenshots. But it is something to bear in mind if you are really precious about your copyright. Some people are, then you might want to put a watermark on it, though we would prefer that you didn't. So if any of your images aren't uploading, don't seem to be uploading, look for an error box telling you why. There should be one. It's almost certainly because it's too small or it's too big. So we recommend you kind of get your images to about 1 to 3 meg to upload them. If any images are appearing on their side, and this is actually quite common, it's not the website's fault. It's because the camera or the device that was used was too clever for its own good. It's tagged what it thinks is the top of the photo with a kind of top tag that overrides kind of normal systems. So the way to get past that is to go back to the original image and to open it and probably save it not in photos. This is on a PC. I'm not sure about on a Mac. I don't know if anybody has a way of doing it on a Mac. It's probably similar. On a PC, instead of opening in photos, I open in Paint, and then I put one pixel dot of a different, a little white or a little black pixel dot in tiny that no one will ever spot, and then resave it with a different file name in a different and then that does, and then turn it, and that does the trick. If you get really stuck though, sometimes if we get really stuck, we use snipping tool screenshot, but then that really reduces the resolution. But if you get really stuck, send them in, and we'll have a bash. We can't promise to do it, but we're quite experienced at bashing sideways images into submission. So once your images are in the gallery, you can rearrange them. There's just a little arrow. It's fairly standard. It's the way you would do it on Facebook or on other things. You can rearrange them once they're uploaded, and then do add captions. So keep your captions brief because the length will be truncated on some devices. So I would probably just put, maybe 6 or 8 words. People do want to know prices. Very, very often they're not, most people probably don't put prices, but the visitors to the website tell us they do want prices. It's one of the complaints I hear. So I know in theory people can email you and ask, but I think people are shy about it, particularly if then the answer comes back and they then can't afford it, they feel bad. So I think it's really useful to put prices. If you want to put lots more
Sorry,
than
do
will
you?
fit, go
Sorry,
on.
you said to butt in with questions. Do
Yes,
you put
please
the
do.
do you put the size as well? Because that's
Yes,
very relevant,
I
isn't
would
it?
put the size too, because I think again that's kind of relevant to the price, and
Yes.
it's relevant to whether it will fit in somebody's, over their giant mantelpiece or in their downstairs loo or whatever. So
But you
yes, I
don't
would
put the
put.
materials or the substrate or anything else
Yeah,
in
you
there.
can do. Well,
Okay.
but you might find though that that starts to then be too much information,
Yeah.
particularly if you've got a long title. So what
Yeah.
you could do, and what I often recommend people do, is you put number one and title of piece, number two title of piece, and then in the exhibition information text box, you could then just do a list with the price,
Okay. Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
title, price, and size, something like that.
Okay.
Because you
Thank
can do longer captions, and on some devices they will show, but on others they
you.
won't. So
Okay.
that's why we
Great.
keep
But the
keep.
price is the crucial thing, yeah?
Hmm?
You think the title and the price are the crucial things to put in the caption?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's completely up to you, obviously,
Yeah.
but I that's what I would put in, or
Thank you.
just the price and then put just the caption and then just the title and then put the title and the further information in your exhibition box.
Yeah. Okay.
And then again, remember to save. So we've already talked about how you can then put links to other images elsewhere online if you want to. The other thing you could do is create an exhibition catalogue, so not have images online somewhere else. Create an exhibition catalogue in Word or PowerPoint, something simple. Save it as a PDF, and then that can be uploaded into the portfolio too. So then you could put in your text, see exhibition catalogue below, and if you upload a PDF, then there'll be a little button will appear on your artist portfolio, which people can click on, and it takes them through to that. Um, I know one of our artists has already done one. He is called Neville Crowson, because he's already sent it to me. So when the 2026 goes live, if you were to look up Neville Crowson, you'll be able to see what's happened with how that's worked in his portfolio. I don't quite know how it's worked yet because it's not live. But I'm sure he does it every year. I'm sure it will be a reason, it will have appeared. So the next section after your images is called biography and further information. And that's when you click on it, you get your text boxes. Basically, yeah, biography and further information is longhand for text. So that's the virtual equivalent of an accessible art and artist information sheet. I spend not half of my life. I have a side hustle for the Times of Malta where I write art pieces for the Times of Malta. And I spend most of my time, instead of actually writing anything, kind of translating from curator speak into normal English. So we're not looking for curator speak. We're looking for normal Oxfordshire person pootling around on a Sunday in the sunshine. What do they want to read? What do they want to know? So it doesn't need to be fancy. It really should say simply what's hanging on the walls of your portfolio or laid out on your virtual table in your portfolio. It's for that everyday visitor, as well as the kind of the art enthusiast. And I know this is where lots of you get scared, and this is what we'll talk about in the next section, talking about yourself. But it's really not that hard. So most people upload their images, far fewer complete the text. But if you've got the best images out of all 1,000 artists in Artweeks, and you've got the best images, they're absolute crackers. If you've put no text at all, there's very little I can do with it because I can't turn images into an article if there's nothing to go alongside those immensely magical images. So that's why text is super important. I don't need to know that there's homemade cake in a local church. I need to know about you and why you've done what you've done, why that's what you're inspired by. But firstly, if all you're going to do is minimum in text boxes, think keywords. Because just as I can't make up something from nothing, Google can't find you from nothing. So what keywords do you want in that portfolio? If you want people searching for pottery, Banbury, or Oxford paintings, or felted jewellery, Oxfordshire, if you want people who are looking for those things to find you, then you need to put those words in your search box. So simple words that describe your creations, what would people, if people are looking for art like yours, what are they going to be putting in the search bar? Put those words into your text. Thameside landscapes, cat commissions, quirky jugs, glass bowls, eco printing, photographs of local pubs and the people within them. Whatever it is, make sure those keywords are in there. And then you'll pop up. Again, because the Artweek site is so big, it's so linked to other websites and the algorithms think it's really useful, it's likely to come up quite well if somebody's searching for Garden Sculpture Commission Oxfordshire. And then I'm also using it, of course, for publicity. And I'm not the only person who will be using it for publicity. I'll be pulling together either ready form text for certain places or information packs and entire, please, would you like to do something on this? Little nuggets of paragraphs of information on different artists I think might fit their brief or their interests. But they might also be looking for those things online themselves. And gallery owners do also look through our website. We know this. They choose people, they go on for to go and visit from the website. So just put in the text boxes what you might say to these people about your art and about you if you were standing talking to them in person. And that text as well, it also adds depth to your portfolio and to your work. So people are stopping by your portfolio because they've really liked your image, either that iconic image that they've seen on a venue list or in the online show or somewhere else. They've stopped by because of the image, but they'll linger for longer if there's more to discover about you and about your work. So, that's about you as well as your work. So, Artweeks is often perceived as a menu of venues, but actually, as I said before, it's as much about the artists and the makers. And so people want to hear a bit of a backstory. And when people are buying something handmade, they're paying quite a lot more than they would for the same thing crafted in China from resin. Maybe not crafted, mass produced in China from resin. But they know that that's been made by someone, and part of their pleasure is in having and holding that item or seeing something that they know nobody else has got one the same. So, and what comes with that as well, you can do a certificate that says this is a one of 10 edition or authentic original painting by, but actually they like the story that comes with it. Where did they find it? How they drove down that leafy lane in a muddy little village in the rain, and then they came across this charming studio, or they met this fascinatingly interesting person who only ever wears fuchsia pink and has a fascinator on the top of her head at all times, or whatever it is. They found someone interesting in an interesting place. And they talk to them about how and why they made it. And so they carry that story away with them as well as the piece of art. And so you want to have a little bit of that flavour in your portfolio too, if you can. And again, that's one of the reasons why we have the artist names and not trading names. Nobody's exciting because they came across blue button designs. Well, maybe you might be excited if there is a blue button designs amongst you all. But it's not quite the same as feeling like you've met a person. So you are key. A trading name is impersonal, and you are a person that they can make a connection with online just as much as for real. And so it's a privilege for visitors to get that insight into you guys, and they appreciate it. So the best portfolios really are giving people that idea of you and your practice and your inspiration, and they're introducing you and your story. So again, not a CV. Nobody comes to visit you because you did an art course in High Wycombe in the 1980s, or you've recently finished a foundation art course in Cardiff. That's probably not going to pull someone in as much as some sentences that says, I've done this and I'm excited about this and this is why. I'd also say beware of focusing too much on the making process. That can really, artists are very excited about their making process generally, and for some of you, it's key. It's more key than the end result. But I think if you think of it as like if there's a film director making a film, and they go on about how they were, how they commissioned the cast and who they asked to build the set. And you'll be saying, yes, yes, that's all really interesting, but what is the film about? What's the story? What's the creation? What did you create? Who are the characters and what's the behavior and the actions? They want to know about the film first and then about how it was made. So just think about it in that way. And I think the other thing that's really interesting, people are interested in, is what inspires you to create. Is it the places you go, the things that you see, or is it the process itself? Are you a potter? And basically, as a child, you just, I don't know, you grew up in a muddy garden in Wales where it rained all the time. So you're so used to mud that you made things with it. And now you're a potter and you're basically doing the same thing, but making a living from it as a grown-up. Or are you a jeweler and you do these wonderful, delicate little things? Actually, you'd really like to be a sculptor, but you live in a two up, two down without a garden. So there really isn't much. You haven't got many options for giant sculpting. So it could be, well, why are you drawn to sparkly gemstones? Or are you a mosaicist? Because basically you're a complete klutz, and every time you get given something you really like, you smash it by mistake. So you thought, well, I may as well use these bits, and then I've still got at least bits of the things I smashed. So those kinds of stories they're great, and you would probably think that it's really obvious that a potter likes clay, or I don't know, you paint in bright colours, so of course you like bright colours. But those are your USP. I mean, there's 12 of you, however many of you here, 16, 20 of you here. If I asked you all to create something inspired by the Radcliffe camera, they'd all be different, and they'd all be very, very different. So don't think just because, oh, well, lots of people paint the Radcliffe camera, that you haven't got anything to say about how you have painted it, because there will be something. So in the next session, I'll go through really slowly a sort of series of simple questions about what you make and what makes you tick. And I'm going to suggest you've got a pen and a piece of paper and you jot down answers to that. And then actually, if you kind of write that up, you should hopefully have a couple of paragraphs about yourself that is different from what everybody else would have written. And it's a really useful starting point. So that's the next bit. We'll have a quick top up of tea first, to jam in a couple of custard creams. But so just as a very quick summary of the portfolio, simply describe what you're including in your show, the pieces or the series themselves, use some adjectives, and tell the visitors what inspires you as well as how you make it, and include something on you as well. There's both exhibition and artist information boxes in that portfolio. So for some of you, that will be really obviously distinct. You're an artist, you do all this, and this year, what you've produced is this. For others of you, the two will be wrapped up much more closely. So you might write one piece and then split it into two, or you might just put it into one box or the other. You don't need to fill both boxes if the two are interwingled. I don't know if that's an official word. It's an official Artweeks word. If your art and your exhibition and your artist information are interwingled, then just put them in one box. And I've said a reminder, probably do it in Word rather than in the website itself. Also, then if your internet cuts out, you're in trouble if you've gone straight onto the website. And do keep saving when you put things into the artist portfolio, in case you accidentally shut that window while you're at it. And then also, when you've written that information in Word, print it out as an artist information sheet with an image or two at the top, and then you've got something to put out at your exhibition. I'm running on. It's exhausting. You must be exhausted. I'm exhausted. The final bit, speed now, is about the videos. And we've given you space for 3 embedded videos. We have titled them Meet the Artist, Artist at Work, and a virtual tour, I think. Now, we don't have the capacity to put videos up online on the website, the actual video. They can be, particularly they used to be, massive megabytes. and the storage would just be too much when there are really straightforward ways of putting things onto YouTube and Vimeo. They're really, really easy. I mean, YouTube, it couldn't be easier. You go on, you create an account, you click on a little video icon top right, and you upload something. So if you do that, you then get a sharing code. You just get a code or it's a URL of your video that you've uploaded, and you just cut and paste that into the website, and it will become an embedded video, which means that you can see that video within your portfolio. You can also use Vimeo. Those are the two that I recommend. You can probably use others, but I know that those two will embed. So it's just a case then of cutting and pasting that link, the URL of that video, and putting it in your artist portfolio. So the Meet the Artist, just a quick hello on a smartphone is fine. It doesn't need to be 20 minutes long. 30 seconds, a hello, that's fine. The one that Jane Tomlinson did a couple of years ago and still uses, which I've put in my kind of template of an artist portfolio, is a really nice one. She's outside, she does outside work. She does stuff inspired by the outside world. It's a lovely, fresh video. The next one, Artist at Work. You don't have to show your face. You don't have to do all three either. Sometimes people do use a time lapse app so that they can see a work being developed, a single work being created rather than them being in it. Or it could just be 20 seconds of you painting something or at the wheel, whatever. Maybe ask someone to take it. They are best landscape orientation to go onto YouTube or Vimeo, which if you were doing them for social media, you would probably do them portrait orientation. So do think about landscape. It can be portrait. It's just that because the box, the YouTube embedded box will be landscape, so then you'll just be a stripe in the middle, which if you're a stripe in the middle of somebody else's phone screen is starting to make you very, very tiny indeed. You can also do a sort of artist at work video by putting still photo images into, say, PowerPoint and then exporting them into as a video. Very easy to do. If you can use Word, you can use PowerPoint, and then you just go to Save As and you put it as export as a video or as an MP4 file, and then you've got a video. So that's something that's really worth having a bash at if you're spending a chilly afternoon in a church hall selling your work. It might be worth spending an afternoon before you get there just playing with PowerPoint and making a video that'll be useful. It's probably time well spent. And then the virtual tour, could be just all the stills, pictures of all the work you're going to have in the exhibition. Again, put into, I'm going to say PowerPoint, but any video making tool would do it. Just put them into kind of I can't remember what it's called, chimp, clip. Somebody will know what it is. Does anybody know what the video tool is called on Microsoft? I'll remember. Anyway, if you just put it into your Microsoft Office, you'll be able to do just import 12, 15, 30, 100 images, and it will turn it into a video for you, and you can add music. And that could be your virtual tour, or you could walk around your studio or walk around your exhibition once it's hung, speed walk, silent, you don't have to talk, or you can talk, and then put that up. And there's one that Sarah Bond did, which I thought was really lovely, and that's in my template artist portfolio to give you an idea. But there is no right and wrong for any of these things. Videos are important because they add a dynamism to your portfolio. So up until this point, there's 12 images, which won't take somebody very long to look at, and a little bit of text, and it's all very static. If you have video, people will stop and linger in your portfolio a bit more and feel a little bit more like they've met you. So you could spend 10 minutes talking through your art on show and your ideas and methods. And it brings you as the creator back into the picture. So the picture of you is your welcome, but these videos are, if you like, they're your chat. They're your Open Studios chat, for real. And they're just a really fantastic way of giving a friendly insight. Don't worry that they're not professionally produced. Don't worry if they're quirky. In fact, quirky's good because it makes you stand out as to who you are. Art Weeks is not a pristine, perfect, gallery produced festival. It is deliberately kind of homegrown charm. There's a real wide variability of the exhibitions, the people involved, and so that variability can be mirrored in the videos. It's great actually to see variety. So don't worry if it's that it's not professionally produced or that it's not long. Just a little bit of an insight into you. That's great. And then we've talked also about the exhibition catalogue. This also goes, you would upload it in that advanced section for the techno greats. But it's not actually hard to produce. And I think in the creating a portfolio document, we actually give instructions on how you can do that, how you can create it. I don't know, colouring the background and how to save as a PDF. I mean, it's so easy if you use Word regularly, you won't need to be told. But I think we actually give instructions on how to change the background of your Word document or your PowerPoint slide, and how to turn it then into a PDF. If you've got a PDF, you can turn it into a flipbook. And all you do is upload that PDF into a website like FlipSnack is the one we recommend, as long as it's up to I think it's 30 pages. Then you can upload a PDF into FlipSnack. FlipSnack will turn it into a flipbook which is what we used when we sent out the Art Weeks guide earlier this week. It was a flipbook that's in FlipSnack. It's free to use FlipSnack up to 30 pages, I think. So you could have you could get 4 images, 100 images into that if you wanted. Some people put text as well, the description of the image in the flipbook, in the PDF, and why they did it and the price and the size. Some people choose to just have images. So again, completely up to you. And the nice thing about that is if you've got a flipbook or a PDF, you can send it to your mailing list. You can send it to people who aren't going to be able to make it. And again, sometimes people buy work from exhibition catalogues. If they know what your work is like and they see something they really like, they might buy it directly. Yeah, so just I know we're all desperate for another top up of tea. But I think do bear in mind though, if you're sending out or including an exhibition catalogue in your portfolio, if you put absolutely everything in, are people going to come and see your show for real? Now, hopefully the answer would still be yes, because they really like them and I'd like to see them for real. But you might want to just put some things, or you might even want to put the exhibition catalogue up afterwards, or you could put in your text if you'd like to see the exhibition catalogue at the end of the exhibition, or email for if you'd like to see the exhibition catalogue. So just think about how that works for you. Some people want more people to see all their work and are less bothered about the actual footfall. Other people really want the footfall and the engagement at a venue. So I think that's it. The only other thing you could do if you wanted is put a link in your portfolio to a live stream event if you were choosing to do a live event on YouTube or Instagram or any other channel that you have. Most of you don't do that, but occasionally someone or other will. So it is an option for you. So yeah, if in your portfolio then you've included images, video, some text, and that your personality and what's important to you is coming through, whether that's a quiet elegance or a bit of humour or a quirky approach or your overriding passion for dogs as well as paintbrushes, then what you're doing is you're offering an insight into your making process, and what matters to you in art and beyond, so that those virtual visitors are feeling like they've met you. And of course, you're hoping that a visitor or a buyer, they'll see something, they'll love it, they'll buy it right away. But if they like your vibe as well as your art, then that's when they'll come to your venue or follow you on social media. If they like they share your interests, you both love yoga, you're both super eco, vegan, eco printing, fabric wearing, whatever it is, if they feel a match there, they feel a connection, then they'll sign up to your mailing list. And it might not be cash in the bank, but it's still a result because you're now in touch with them. And every time you send out a newsletter or post online, you know, they're in touch with that. So we know that for big purchases and things, it takes probably 3 visits minimum before someone commissions something. But actually, your online portfolio can kind of be one of those visits if they get enough of a feel for you in that space. Um, so I think that's enough. Any questions? So we've talked kind of ever increasingly fast about what you can put into your artist portfolio. And if you do have any kind of questions about anything, you can always come back to us. But have a look at it and have a rummage round and see what you can find. And so, yes, we're hoping that someone will, see a piece of work and fall in love with it. But we talked about wanting people to feel a connection with you and to understand why and what you're producing. So one of the ways to do this is to include the text about you and your exhibition and what inspires you and the art that the visitors are going to see. It's exactly the same thing as you'd probably want to chat to somebody about, or you would chat to somebody about in a real venue. So think about just, in a sentence, how would you describe your work? And so even the best will in the world, I can't stretch something that just says paintings of India or stone carvings for the garden into 2 paragraphs. So we want to put a bit more about you in than that. And if you were writing an online dating profile, you'd expect to include some description, your best features, your character traits. And so this is the same, except you're probably not going to end up with a new partner as a result. So I'm going to just run through a long list of questions and ideas, some of which will be relevant to you and some of them won't. But I'm suggesting you just jot down your thoughts and answers over the next half an hour, and then that will give you a sort of scribbled starting point. And I'm trying to get you to think about you and what you create and why. And we want adjectives and nuggets of information that are going to describe you and what you're including in your Artweeks exhibition, what inspired them, what inspires you generally, and as well as how you make it. So if you write that up, you should then get those 2 paragraphs, a couple of paragraphs. Don't stress, they don't need to be too formal. And actually, it's better if your personality and what's important to you comes through. Then anybody reading your information sheet is going to get that flavour of who you are, what makes you tick.
Can
And
I
whether
just
you're...
ask very quickly,
Yeah, of
should
course.
we be writing the portfolio as I so and so and so and so, or Louise is so and so and so and so?
Interesting one. I think probably write as you. Particularly if it's on the quirky side, but I don't think it matters. We don't have a rule of thumb, and I think it's probably a 50-50 split what people do. So some people are very much wanting to tell themselves, but you might feel it's easier if you describe yourself. So yeah, I don't actually have a strong feeling about that.
I've done it both ways, and then I flip back and I think, no, that's right on the other way as
Yeah,
well.
and
So,
I don't think it matters because I think a portfolio can be lovely with either.
okay.
Can I
Doesn't
just
help.
can I just say, oh sorry, I haven't got my video on. Can I
Yeah,
just say, as a visitor to a website, I tend to prefer first person ones because I think if they're written as she does this and she does that, you kind of think, who's written this?
yeah.
Are they a business? It feels a bit less personal.
I think it feels more personal if it's I. Yeah, but but I don't think there's much in it. Yeah, no, I think it does feel more personal. I think it probably is nicer. Um, so. And we're also just sort of thinking, so whether, you want your kind of flavour should come across, whether you're practical and robust like your art, then your write-up might be quite practical and robust. Or, if elegance is your thing, then, or functionality, then, your abstracted eye, your experimental approach, that kind of your feel, your the way you approach things should come across. Because what interests people is actually other people, what they think how they live their lives. So even a news story about a new block of flats in Oxford where people are up in arms because it's going to be on a lovely green park space and cause there to be big shadows over an Oxford college. The story will still be about what people think, what the people who are going to live there, they're really excited, what the people who are going to live in the big dark shadow think. Somebody who's, sewers are blocked because there's too many people already. It will be about people. The story will be about people. It won't be about the thing. The thing's clearly important, but it's not the key thing, is what people think, whether it's excited holiday makers or queuing commuters. So, I said before, write it in Word, save it when you're happy, then cut and paste it. So, first, I'm going to ask you to think about you and what do you make? Or what are you creating? What have you created for this exhibition? So this isn't what does it look like, and this isn't how do you do it. So it is what it looks like, but not how do you do it, is what does it look like? So if it's, nobody goes to buy a painting because it's a watercolor. They go because it's a painting of a place they know. So or they buy a jug because they like things that they can use, but they don't buy it because it's got a copper glaze, probably a green glaze, a blue glaze. Actually, with a jug, they might with pottery, the colour. But so it's what are you making? So I'm asking about the content, whether that's mountain scenes or wildlife photography, ceramics inspired by East African architecture, jewellery in muted colours, collage art that makes people question the world around them. And then the medium, while it's very important to you, it's pretty crucial to you as an artist, what medium you use, that's quite often secondary to a visitor. So minimise the amount you include on process in the first instance. Assume that the person on the street, the average person on the street, perhaps doesn't even know the difference between oils and acrylics, never heard of a reduction lino cut or raku firing. So something really simple. That might be the useful as the first line of an information sheet or a press release, that kind of single sentence or an enticing one phrase line that summarises the content for your exhibition. So if you have a solo exhibition, you've probably already done that. It's what you've put in the festival guide. For the rest of you, what would you put those 12 words in the festival guide? What would you put if you weren't part of a group? What would yours be? So it could be, and also the title, it might be the title for a show if you were going to have a title. So this is really a summary. So you might come back to this when you've written other things, but hopefully it's actually just really straightforward for you. You might say, well, if you make a variety of art in many medium, that's actually so broad you're not giving anybody an idea of what you make. You might be super talented in many medium, but nobody's really got a handle on what that is. So, and it could be a complete mismatch. It's generally easier to market things if they've got a focus. So try and find that focus. It could be that it's still life inspired by domesticity, or ceramics decorated with colours inspired by the Arctic, glass art inspired by the garden. And then maybe try and add an adjective that suits your work to give it flavour, that sets it apart. And I'm not talking about an adjective like wonderful. I'm talking about an adjective that is your elegant or organic or colourful or something slightly, quirky or inventive. So an adjective that describes kind of the core of the feel of your work. What sets your work apart? Is it your tendency to use straight lines or curves? Are your pieces about the shapes of the landscape, or are they about the moods of the people within it? Is your work inspired by the sea or inspired by things that make you happy when you see them? Are you exploring something or celebrating something? So that could be childhood or memories or living life to the full. Are you exploring nature at its most tangled or recording something, streetscapes or people's moods, energy, the beauty of a wood? it could be that you've got quite a few things that are woodland related, but lots of other things too. So then you can add, you know, the beauty of the woodland and other things, though the word things is a little bit ordinary, but so it could be that you've started with the colours of India and more besides. That's nicer than and other things. Um, if you don't have a designated theme at all to describe, then maybe decide on a description that covers the breadth of what you do. So from the traditional to the unexpected, for example, from dogs and doors to the Dolomites. Don't be afraid of a bit of gratuitous alliteration. Everybody loves a bit of alliteration. Um, and it just adds a touch of flavour. So in that, you've told people that you do dogs and doors, so you can do creatures, you can do houses, and the Dolomites and wider landscapes. So it's just a little bit more interesting than saying animals and landscapes. So just have a think about if once you've got your idea, whether you can make it sound slightly more interesting. And then that's starting to put your personality in because you've chosen dogs and doors and the Dolomites, but someone else has chosen ducks and drafty windows and the Dordogne. So then, so now, what is the art in your show? Is it that art inspired by industrial heritage or the fossils beneath your feet, a Cotswold garden? Rivers, lakes, sunny days? Do you prefer stormy nights? Dramatic views? Or is it the small scale that you like? Objects in the home that maybe we overlook or that you enjoy using every day? Or precious, kind of daily precious moments? Are your ceramics actually the shapes of them? They'll be inspired by something. Is it the lines of the curves of the body? um, or the past? Or are they kind of sci-fi looking creations? Is it space, the planets? Or is it multidisciplinary work inspired by somebody's poetry? Now, if you're drawing or painting local scenes, and that's an awful lot of you, if I'm talking to all of the artists in Art Weeks, that's still very, very open. People love local scenes. They love seeing places they know, places they're fond of. But can you narrow it down? What makes yours different? So is there a particular local focus? Either you just do the Thames or the Ridgeway, or is it the Salt Way, the Salt Path, the Witchwood Forest, and more? And do you take a stylized or an abstracted approach, or are they very representational? Perhaps they're kind of collaged memories of places. If you're working with a couple of different media, then say it in your overview. Are you working with jewellery with gemstones and small pastel sketches? Both perhaps have a light touch, both focused on greens. Everything inspired with a touch of 1920s glamour. So, what is it that ties those two things together? If there is anything, maybe there isn't. Is it stone carvings for the garden and pop art canvases too? So you sort of gently moving here from maybe a coverall phrase into the details, more detailed information on the exhibition. So again, telling me too much about the media itself is probably like talking about a book and how it's, the Art Weeks guide, it's printed on 120 grams paper, it's, I don't know, 22 centimeters tall, it's 120 pages wide, and the spine is 7 millimeters. Well, that's very structural, but really what you're still going to want to know is what's inside, what story, what's between the covers. So in your text, I'm suggesting that you talk about what's your exhibition about. What does it include? Not supposed to be tricky. It's describing those pieces that you're going to include in a few sentences with a bit more detail. So it might be that you have a dozen of something, a dozen woven wall hangings with geometric patterns and a Moroccan flavour. Oh, and some cushions too. And for these, you use the colours and printing techniques you discovered when you were on holiday there, because then you're giving someone that insight. Or you're throwing pots on a wheel in a cosy studio, and there's a mix of small and large mugs and jugs, mostly in crisp white, but touches of blue, because it adds a flavour of the sea. Or maybe you're making platters in interesting shapes and the occasional teapot. So it's Often you might be describing a body of work and other things. It could be equally that actually what you're describing is a feeling. So you're always trying to capture invigorating wild landscapes that lift the spirit. Or it's mosaics for the garden, but harking back to ancient Greece because you've always been fascinated by Helen of Troy and the stories, and so you can expect boats and seas and wine. Or it could be wood-turned bowls and vessels made from gnarly trees which have fallen down locally, and you love the idea of the stories that those trees tell, what might have happened beneath their branches. And that you went out in your wellies in the cold with the dog and collected the wood when it had fallen down in the winter. So you can see how kind of building the picture around just what's in the show itself. Or it could be portraits that hint at a narrative. Or do you have work that hints at a narrative? And so maybe explain one of those narratives. You've got a picture of a phoenix and coming out of a burning bush with some ducks quacking alongside it. What's in your head when you painted that? What do the ducks represent? Or why have you gone for a phoenix and not a hippogriff? Is that the word? Hippogriff? Hippogriff? So it's interesting to hear the stories perhaps behind just one of those pictures. Maybe if you write the story of why you painted one portrait or one picture, that's enough. That's an example of something, but it's it's representative of what you do. It might be that you are issue driven. So you're inspired to encourage people to think about environmental issues or challenges or things like that. We also often have people who are inspired to paint by or create having kind of come through mental health challenges. So that, put that too. Now, we do try and encourage people to be as upbeat as possible in portfolios because people are coming to Art Weeks, hopefully for, a nice time. But there are, real cases where people have used art to get out of very dark places, and it's completely appropriate to include some mention of that. So, so we're including a couple of lines on the medium itself, because it's most important that it's about the creation itself is what you're describing, and then the media second. We want to know if it's funky animals or trees, stylized, and then the media. Now, so don't be afraid to use adjectives. Lots of adjectives is good, but not bigging yourself up, not gorgeous and amazing. I'm sure the work is, but you shouldn't be describing it as that. But it's those adjectives that are the difference between your art and someone else's. So I said if everybody's doing the Radcliffe camera, you'll all do it differently. Somebody will do it super detailed. It'll take them a month. Someone else will do a 2-minute sketch and draw the Lion and the Witch in the wardrobe in the corner because it's pretty close to that lamppost. And that's great. They're all different. So there'd be a whole Oxford's worth of different Radcliffes. Would it be delicate? Would it be rustic, your version? Would it be bold? Or would it be intriguing? Would it be collaged? Would it be imaginative? Or just, clearly representational? So now I'm going to run through a long series of adjectives, and you might just jot down the ones that you think are relevant to you or something that springs into your mind. Lots of them won't be relevant. So think about your colours, your palette, because you'd all choose a different palette for this Radcliffe camera or this picture of a Winnie the Pooh. Are you monochrome? Is most of your work monochrome? Are your colours organic? Are they tranquil? Are they bold? Are they striking? Are they surprising? And why? Are they metallic? Have you got gold in there? Is it gold leaf? Does it change with the light? Are your colours very much about contrast or are they harmonious? Do they maybe even jar? And has your colour scheme been inspired by something or been particularly influenced by something? Have you lived abroad and the colours of that place kind of, or the light from that place got inside your psyche? Do you have a kind of set colour scheme that you always use, you have always used? Or is it different this year? Has it changed, or do you have, regular turnover of colour schemes? So we have one landscape artist who never uses green, for example, and she says, I never use green. And you think, oh, but you do Oxfordshire landscapes. How does that work? Or there'll be somebody else who got a newbie this year. She's not here today. Maybe she'll watch this one day. Oxfordshire landscapes, lots of pink underlay, dashes, bits of pink around all the fields. It looks great, but it will be different from yours, Judith. They're different.
Is
Some
it
people,
Anouk you were talking about with the greens? No.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's interesting, but that is interesting. And somebody reading
Yeah.
the profile will think, how do they do that then? And they'll go back and look at the pictures again.
I
You know,
didn't used to use greens, but my paintings now are all green.
hmm. And some people have much more geometric approach. They really narrow it down to the kind of core shapes and put a real abstraction in there in terms of geometric abstraction, or it could be very loose lines. So think about your colours. Is there a favourite colour? Is there a colour you don't use? And if not, why not? Do you know why not? Maybe you don't. Do you know why a colour is your favourite? And then does your art reflect or play with the light? And does that change your colours? And then think about your shapes. So are your lines, are they gentle or are they bold? Are they flowing or are they precise or geometric or organic? Is a tight composition very important to you? Do you plan it out all at the beginning really carefully and then sort of fill it in? Or do you start like Philip Pullman with his novels, where apparently he just had Lyra in a cupboard in Jordan College and he didn't know what she was going to go get up to at the beginning of Northern Lights, and then off she went. Is that your approach? And then is your style, how would someone else describe your style, or how would you describe it? Are your brushstrokes, what is the brushstrokes? What's the end result or the look of your work? Is it sweeping or flowing, bold, or is it very ordered? Again, delicate, dainty, meticulous. Is it intuitive? Is it textured or silky? Is it tight, loose, smooth, traditional, or contemporary? Functional, decorative, thought-provoking? What thoughts are you hoping to provoke? Stylized, expressive, emotional, impressionist, speckled, hyperreal? Is it moody, sunny, matte, gloss, confusing? So, what are you trying to do? What does the look of your pictures look like? What do they look like? If you're including people in your works, who and why? And if not, why not? And you don't need to say that every person you ever draw looks like an alien with 6 fingers, and so that's why you don't. You just, you could say, oh, I tend to put silhouettes in the background, but I don't have people in the foreground. You don't need to say it's because you're rubbish at them. Or maybe you always focus on people, and that is your thing. And so why? Have you always been interested in people? Did you draw stickmen as a child and you've just got better and better at it? And then the same sort of thing with places and animals and flowers or anything else that you include, whether that's cars or boats or, or food. Which have you chosen to include? Which have you excluded? And why? Are your people, animals, flowers, are they local or are they exotic? And if they are exotic, did you go to that place? Did you live there? Did you go on holiday? Did you see them for real? Or have you always just seen them online in books, imagined them, and you want to one day, that's your ambition. So what's their appeal to you? Now, this might, there might be nothing in here. You might be thinking, oh, I really don't know. But for some of you, there will be answers to these questions. So don't fret if you've got no people and no reason why you've put no people into your work. That's fine. You just skip this. So then also think about the size of your pieces. And you might like to include a sentence or two or a couple of adjectives on the size because it can be very hard to gauge digitally. I know we've said you're going to put the sizes or approximate sizes of your pictures in your portfolio, but I've done it. Lots of you'll have done it, and certainly visitors to art groups will have done it. You see a picture online, you imagine it's going to be huge, you go and visit it, it's this big, or vice versa. Even when you can see the size, how many people actually get the tape measure out? So maybe, maybe just describe if they are large, say that they're large. If they're tiny, say that they're tiny. Or you could have a nice description that says, I paint pictures that range from small nooks to giant canvases that fit small nooks to those to giant canvases. Just to give people an idea, or maybe they're all very much of a muchness, and you just highlight what size they are. If you make very big pieces or very, very small pieces, is this an opportunity to add a little bit of interest with why you do that, why you do, or what's the largest sculpture you did ever create, or the largest picture you did ever create? If you've got a giant picture in your exhibition, what was the challenge of transporting it? I mean, were there three of you on a bus with it wrapped in a bin liner? Because actually those little nuggets of information they're what remind the reader, that you're a human artist, and they just add a little bit of fun. So if you're creating polymer clay wall art, tiny, tiny scenes in your garden shed, is that because you really, really love the polymer clay? Is it because you've got tiny scenes in your head that you've got to get out in some way, shape, or form, and you like the way that the polymer clay is slightly three-dimensional? Or are you really dreaming about being a set designer at a London theatre or an interior designer for mansions and palaces? So is it giving an insight, your work, into something, an ambition or a dream, just an imaginative dream? Do you know why you're doing what you're doing, and why, I don't know, Ginny is doing something from Eve? That you have different, you'll have different ideas about what it's fun to make and why you like it. So think again about your texture as well. Is this important in your art? Are they tactile? Are they smooth? Are they rough? And why do you like that feel? Because I bet the people who do very smooth pottery aren't quite so keen on very rough pottery, and vice versa. So why is that feel? Why does it appeal to you? What does it evoke for you? And then I've left it till last, though you will want to include it, but I've left it till last, your materials. Of course, is important to you, but people can get so obsessed with what they're creating in the process because you spend a long, long time creating, and then you have a finished thing which you hang or you put in a box or you put to one side and you're creating the next thing. But for the people at the visitor, the people that are visiting, they're looking at the finished items, and that's what's going to entice them to visit you or to buy from you. They like the piece of art because they like its look, and the concept as every bit as much, probably much more than how it was actually made, though they will, we hope, appreciate the skill that went into its creation. So for your materials and your making process, and you'll know as well your audience and your market perhaps. So if you are a potter who has a very specific approach, then that approach will be important to other potters. So I'm not saying don't include that technical know-how about how much oxygen, how your reduction process or whatever. But you could just start with a couple of sentences that explain something very simply in a way that's intriguing for a layperson. Assume that some of the people know nothing. So I've got a couple of sentences I roll out every year because I pulled them out of various, whether it was press releases or portfolios, I don't know, and they just seem to illustrate it perfectly. So one of them is crabby ceramics are created with a type of approach to firing known as raku, where pots are fired to approximately 1,000 degrees centigrade before being smothered in smouldering sawdust for several days. So one sentence kind of covers it all. And people can always look up the process in more detail online if they want to really dig down into the chemistry. And then another one I thought was good was Siobhan employs age-old Byzantine methods to make traditional hand-painted icons using natural pigments on wooden panels with water gilding. She uses the finest layer of real gold leaf to enhance the colours. Gold leaf itself actually comes in many shades. So there's enough there that you've now got an idea of what both artists make in only, I don't know, 2 minutes, a minute and a half. Maybe it was less than that. So just a couple of sentences. If you keep them tight, keep them tidy, then probably you can get quite a lot of information across. Now, if you're sourcing your materials locally, that might be interesting, or you might be sourcing them somewhere really unusual, and that could be really cool. So if you travel somewhere to bring back your things or ship stuff, so we have a guy who does tables with resin in. I think he's taking part this year, and he uses a lot of wood that's come from where there are big dams built in Southeast Asia, and the wood was submerged. The trees were submerged in these lakes, and that's where the wood comes from. So there's real interesting stories there about the wood themselves. Or sea glass if you're collecting sea glass for jewellery, or if you're using pigments that have been ground from local rock. Maybe you're making your own, or maybe you're just buying kind of local paints. So the other thing that you might include in your portfolio text is about you and where you work. So for your artist text, I've already said try and avoid mentioning that textile qualification from Leicester in 1990 or those evening classes at Abingdon and Whitney College, because it's not all that enticing. Probably keep that for your website or at the bottom anyway. But if you do something that's not art, but is integral to what you make, then do mention it. So if you have taken photographs while you rickshawed your way across South America, we want to know that you rickshawed your way. We don't just want to know that you were in South America, because that's really cool. Or something else that's relevant. So we have a guy who takes aerial photographs of the Ridgeway, and he's in the aerospace industry. So clearly he's got this kind of, he's interested in the sky and what you see from the sky. So we're then already quite interested to know, how does he take these aerial photographs with his drone, and what does he see that's different from on the ground? Or, paintings of Vietnam in a wonderfully lush studio setting in Blaydon. And she has this is Suzanne O'Driscoll, has this incredible studio in an incredible old quarry. And it is luscious, like a little rainforest in there. And she's got these kind of rainforesty public art sculpture. She does public art too. These are the mini ones, in on the side of a house. It's a really magical setting that sort of suits the work that she produces. So, so it's nice to know if your setting or your job or previous job has an impact on your art. We have someone who was a dental technician, used to dealing with lots of little bits of metal, and then she became a jeweler. Or pottery inspired by careers, and in fact, we've got jewellery and pottery inspired by careers in archaeology. So, what did they dig up, and are they now reproducing those things? So I've said, we'd like everything to be kind of welcoming and upbeat. We do have those stories of art inspired by work helping refugees or created to overcome mental health issues and those, and that's absolutely, it's important. But if there are particularly any ex-teachers in here, but any ex-anything, please don't write attractive woes about the misery of a career as a teacher and how you turned to art because you just couldn't bear those children anymore. Other people's children were driving you mad. It may be true, but generally, if you can, find the positive spin. Let's start with the idea that passion for art led you away from a previous career, not that you just couldn't do any more accounting ever again. So yeah, we're trying to be upbeat, not melancholic. So some more questions for you. Back to your notebooks. What inspires you to create? Is it the process? Is it your imagination? Or is it the things that you see? How long have you been doing it? Did you turn to art after that earlier career as a taxman, loan shark, whatever? And then if you did, is there an interesting link that you can draw? Or maybe a surprising contrast? So it may be that after a career as an architect, where everything was super tight, calculated, very fine pencil drawings, you're now painting giant immersive landscapes. Had enough of buildings, no buildings in sight. Or maybe this is the landscape that you really want to put your buildings into. Or maybe, I don't know, you were a biologist and now you're creating jewelry where everything's got that little DNA twist to it, or miniature heart pendants that are so lifelike that you could have plucked them out of a silver shrew. So, what is it that you love about what you do? And does it reflect what you used to do, or is it a change from what you used to do? That's if you used to do something before. Is your art going back to childhood? Were you a paint-splattered child, or did you hate art at school? And if you did hate art at school, what changed? And in fact, there's an interesting page in the festival guide about our Artweeks Mary Moser award winner this year, because she didn't like art at school until she got to, I think it was sixth form in Cornwall, and got these two crazy art teachers with fisherman jumpers and beards and clogs who just used to sounded like they drove the art class around in these old long wheelbase Land Rovers, and kind of did slightly madcap things. And suddenly she was inspired, rather than sitting in a classroom and having to draw her thumb for the fifth week running. So, what is it that got you to be arty? Did you grow up in an arty household? Was there a particular person who inspired you? A grandparent, a teacher? And what was it that they did that captured you? Any anecdotes? That might be fun. Or were you discouraged from art because engineering was going to stand you in much better stead career-wise? And so it's something that you only turned to later when you finally didn't mind if your parents disapproved of you. So there may be a story there. It's a story we hear a lot, that people didn't do art and they always wish they had. Could be your travels that have inspired you. So you've been somewhere interesting, you've seen something interesting, you've learnt something. Has that had an impact on your art, particularly maybe the colours? Also, I'm interested in your relationship with Oxford and Oxfordshire, particularly if you're doing Oxford and Oxfordshire work, because Oxford and Oxfordshire one is an interesting one in that lots of people like pictures of Oxford and Oxfordshire because they know it. It can be, sometimes it seems easy to get extra publicity about Oxford and Oxfordshire because so do the editors know it, so do the people, their readers know it. But at the same time, there's an awful lot of Oxford and Oxfordshire art out there. So it might be that something wildly different is appealing for a story in a newspaper, a story in a magazine. So if you're in Oxford or Oxfordshire, how long have you been here? If you make work inspired by local views, what do you love about it? And it might be easier to think about what you love about Oxfordshire if you think about comparing Oxfordshire with different landscapes. So why isn't it Scotland? Why isn't it the Sahara? What is it about Oxfordshire? Is it just that it feels like home? It feels safe? It feels lush? What is it about Oxford or Oxfordshire? And do mention a favourite place. If you have a path, a village walk, something particular that you really love, do mention it. And then where do you work? Do you work outside? Do you sketch and take photographs and bring them back? Or take photographs outside and that is your finished piece? Or do you bring it back and edit it? Is every piece researched and planned meticulously? Have you done research about, I don't know, there's 5 different people in a collaged work. So I've just talked to someone this week about a piece about women of Oxford, and she had found, she pulled out stories of women who'd been important to the history of Oxford, or she felt should be better known because they've had an impact in the history of Oxford. One of whom, actually, interestingly, was an Artweeks artist called Rosemary Wise, who was the first, I think, professional botanic artist in the country in the 60s. And she's got just an interesting story to tell. But she appeared in one of these paintings. So if you've got a painting with people or little vignettes of places, why did you choose those? What's interesting about them? Maybe. So maybe you've done all that research, or maybe you've just gone with the flow. Then, is your studio interesting, or your workplace? Now, this is always an interesting one. Is it a reflection of your character or your art? So, if you're hands up, tidy people. Oh dear. Hands up, tidy studios. Hands up, messy people. Hands up, messy studios. Okay, so there we go. Probably your studio is a reflection of your character and your art. Is it a retreat for you, your studio? Does it feel like a homecoming? Is it a sanctuary? Tranquil, maybe, quiet and reflective? Or is it a springboard into an adventure, an escape, and a departure point? Is it chaotic and enlivening? Would it be neat and ordered if you only ever had the time, but you're so busy that you can't ever stop to actually tidy up? And that's why some people sign up to Art Weeks, I know.
Yeah, that's just what I was going to say. That's the reason I sign up. Gets an annual or a twice annual tidy up when I do it here.
And you'd be surprised, I hear that quite often. It gives a focus and it gives a tidy up
Yeah, definitely.
deadline. But is it colourful, like a sweet shop of colour? I mean, are your mosaic bits just in jars and you'd like to gobble them up really, but it's just a low-calorie version? Is it a hive of activity? Is it a drafty old barn, a drafty old pigsty? Is it interesting in some way, your studio? A coal wharf. We've had a coal wharf. Is it part of an old fire station? We've had that too. Or quite often it's the back bedroom. It's not that interesting, but maybe you've done something different with it. So so this is about you and your art. It isn't the place to include an essay on the restoration of your gypsy caravan or the entire wartime history of Coles Hill Manor, which is one of our venues, and it's a really interesting history. It's definitely worth looking up. But for those things, just add a link or a link to a PDF or something. People might be interested. So not too much on your studio and its history, but it can be relevant. It can be really interesting. Maybe it's in a community of other artists. And that's cool. Maybe it's in an attic garret. That sounds romantic. So, or is it of interest because of the unexpected? So, did you create these life-size statues in a room that was, in a under the stairs cupboard? Did you have, and one of our artists did, have her glass kiln in the cellar for the first 5 years because it was the only space she could find, and she said she felt like a mole for 5 years. Now she has a lovely garden studio. Um, what are your feelings and hopes about your art and your forthcoming exhibition? Put down if you want. What are you hoping to get out of your exhibition? Is it just about meeting people and chatting about art? Is it meeting people and chatting about species of fish, if that's what your exhibition is about? You want all the fish lovers to come. What is it you're hoping to get out of your exhibition? Or maybe what was your past experience of Art Weeks? That might be interesting, a line that you enjoy it because, and people please come and you're going to have a really great lemon drizzle cake. You can mention cake at the end, it's just not necessarily your key point. So I'm guessing you've now got some pages of sort of scribbled notes. And hopefully you can write them up and tidy them up into sentences, and that might serve as a nice basis for exhibition and or artist information. It might be that you ask a friend to do it. There is a dating website. I think it's called something like Date My Friend. My best friend is great. Something like that. Maybe get a friend to write it up for you once you've kind of translated your handwriting into typewritten text, because they might actually be slightly better at seeing the wood for the trees. And some people find it really hard to write about themselves. So bear it in mind that it might be useful for somebody else to have a look at it. I think that's everything, I think. The idea about describing you, your studio, your process, your inspiration, some combination of those things, hopefully will give you a couple of paragraphs. Any questions? Thoughts?